Hello and welcome to the EcoCast by Actual Tech Media. Today's topic, preventing phishing attacks. On this event, you'll hear from experts at KnowBe4, Sophos, Recorded Future, Okta, and Duo. Thank you so much for joining us on the EcoCast today. With so many employees out there working remotely, employees at home have become the new network perimeter. And phishing has been elevated to one of the most effective ways for attackers to get into the network. After all, it's easier for bad guys to social engineer their way past two trusting employees than to break into properly patched systems. On this event, you'll learn about the most effective tools and techniques for hardening your organization against phishing, smishing, and vishing, and our experts will demonstrate their innovative solutions and powerful training tools to help you and your employees better defend yourself from these attacks that are plaguing IT organizations and companies around the world. If you haven't been on an EcoCast before, you should know that we at Actual Tech Media created the EcoCast and MegaCast event series to help educate IT professionals such as yourselves about the latest and greatest in enterprise technology to help you to learn about these solutions, get all your questions answered, and do it quickly and efficiently without ever having to leave your home or office. We know how tough it is out there in the world of technology, and this event is here to help. So we encourage your questions, and we've got some awesome prizes on the EcoCast today. I'll be talking about those here in just a moment. We'll also have some poll questions for you along the way. We want this to be a social event. You can socialize the event right there from your audience console using the Twitter icon, and the hashtag for today's event will be automatically appended. I'll be retweeting and commenting and following just about anyone out there who talks about the event, so we appreciate your participation in that. We also have some awesome resources available there in the handouts tab of your audience console. We've got evaluations, trial links, educational resources, solution briefs, ebooks, and more. So make sure that you check those out. The prize lineup for today is 3 Amazon $500 gift cards. You must be live in attendance to qualify for the prize drawings, and we will be announcing the prize winners periodically during the event. We also have our best question prizes for an additional 5 Amazon $50 gift cards. Of course, you have to ask a question to be entered into the best question prize drawing, and all prize winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions that you can find there in the handouts tab. We will reach out to prize winners via email after the event, and grand prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. Winners always have the option to make a donation to the selected charities that you see here on the screen. Over the years, we've donated thousands of dollars to charities, thanks to generous prize winners such as yourselves. So if you win a prize and you want to help someone less fortunate, we would love to help you do that. We've done that in partnership with the Gorilla Guide Book Club. This is where you can download free educational IT books. They're fun to read. They do work on your Kindle or iPad or mobile device, and it's a great way to stay up to date on enterprise technology. And did I mention they're all free? That's right. Completely free. You can download them at gorilla.guide. They're full-length books, so it's a great value. Again, gorilla.guide, and you'll find a link to that there in the handouts tab. We encourage you to socialize the event. As I mentioned, on Twitter, the hashtag is ATM EcoCast, and you can follow Actual Tech Media and me, your moderator, David M. Davis, as well. You can follow Actual Tech Media on YouTube and LinkedIn. We post all of our latest and greatest content there on LinkedIn. And over on YouTube, by the way, we post recordings of all of our events. So it's a great way to get a steady stream of past event recordings. And that way, if you miss a live event, you can watch that recording on demand. All right, so with that housekeeping information out of the way, I'd like to take a few moments and chat about today's topic. I'm excited now to be joined by Mr. Scott Becker, technology analyst, industry veteran, fellow moderator here at Actual Tech Media. And Scott, it's great to have you on. Let's chat about phishing.
That sounds great. Yeah, we're going to spend the next couple of hours hearing about phishing tactics, tools, training. It's going to be great. But I thought before we get into that, let's hear a little bit about what we're up against with phishing. You might notice this background is a little bit crazy, a little bit psychedelic. I thought it was appropriate as a sort of visual metaphor for, sort of the up is down, through the looking glass world of, phishing emails. So let's get started with looking at some of the challenges. So this first data point that I wanted to talk about comes from Cisco, and one of our companies that's going to present later, Dual Security. Cisco is their parent company, but this was a great report that they did in early 2021, based mostly on 2020 data, but I think it's still very relevant. And what you're looking at here is DNS queries that Cisco collected, and identified as threat queries. And the 10x there refers to how many more queries came in for these 4 big categories at the top here versus everything else. So that narrow band at the bottom, that's like everything else, in terms of threat traffic, dropper, botnet, adware, remote access Trojans, all those kind of things. Those big 4 are crypto mining, phishing, Trojans, and ransomware. And phishing there is number 2. And it's just a lot of the traffic out there on the web and in your networks is phishing traffic.
That's incredible. 10 times more queries than any other threat type happening out there. I mean, it's just incredible. And it's no wonder that phishing is the #1 cause of ransomware infections.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, you look at those 2 there, the second item phishing and the 4th item ransomware, and how closely those are linked. It makes it even sort of bigger, the 2 of those together.
That's right. Yeah, if you combine those 2. And so, I mean, I'm curious out there, and I know we're going to be running a poll here in just a little bit. How many organizations really have had successful phishing attacks that have resulted in some sort of ransomware or data, exfiltration of some kind? What have you found, Scott?
Yeah, so that's, this slide here comes from a report that Proofpoint released about a month ago, and they called it the State of the Phish report. But, the question that they asked 2 years in a row is, have you had at least one successful email phishing attack in your organization? So, was there a phishing email that came into your organization, somebody clicked on it, something bad happened? That's basically the premise of the question. And if you look on the left there, 2020, that number was 57%. Look in 2021, that number is 83%. So that's a huge jump. And I don't know. I don't quite know what to make of it.
It is incredible. I mean, I know with more, companies doing work from home, employees working from home, students working from home, and the ransomware attacks, just kind of skyrocketed. But I'd be curious to know, even without that, if these kind of statistics would have just continually gone up and up, just like we see here. And I'll be even more interested to see the results of, 2022, what's going to happen this year, because I would bet that it's going to be even higher, than 83%. And so we'll be polling our audience here after we conclude this discussion to find out, and I'll be sharing the results with everyone out there, so you can see, how you compare with everyone else who's on the event today.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that data. All right, let's go to something that's, scary, but also a little bit fun. So, you often see, what are the top brands involved in phishing attacks? So what are attackers using, to lure people into opening their phishing emails? So David, I'm going to show you each one, and I'd love to get your reaction. So these are going to be the top 6 that came out in a. This was a survey done by Hornet Security, a German company, but from international results. But a lot of people do those, and the results I think are always pretty similar. But here's number 6, Microsoft.
I would have guessed that would be number 1, just based on the emails that I get. So many of them that are clearly phishing are impersonating as Microsoft. You need to reset your password, your Office 365 password, has expired. Click here to reset that kind of thing. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it's in the top 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I'll add too, I spent 20 years before coming here as a technology journalist covering Microsoft primarily. And I've got to have like at least 30 different Microsoft accounts under various, brands that, they pushed for a while and then gave up on, like live.com and, all these different things. And I have no idea, what a lot of the credentials are for them. So I would probably be a prime candidate. Number 5, LinkedIn, a Microsoft subsidiary.
Yeah, I mean, with so many IT professionals using LinkedIn, it's no wonder it's the place to go to attack, people in IT organizations, professional people who most likely have access to sensitive data in, high level of permissions. So I think that makes total sense.
Number 4, PayPal.
Yeah, I mean, having to do with money, of course, that's going to be something. I've also seen a lot of them from, other well-known banks here in the United States,
Yep.
Bank of America, Chase Bank, things like that.
Absolutely. Follow the money. Number 3, DocuSign.
Again, makes perfect sense. Important documents. They want you to click on that, give them your credentials and your social security number or something like that. People would sort of expect that when they click on the DocuSign link to be prepared to give over some important information. So a smart place for these fishermen. Are they fishermen, Scott? Did you research that?
I like that term. Yes.
With a PH, fishermen?
With a PH, yeah. Very
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Number 2, DHL.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said this is from a German research organization, so maybe that makes more sense over in Europe. I don't see a lot of DHL here, maybe more FedEx and UPS, like UPS package exception, your package, failed to deliver, click here to find out kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely. And number 1, I don't think this is a surprise, but
you're right.
Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's getting Amazon notifications every day for their packages, so it's just gonna be one of the other many notifications they're used to just clicking on and providing some credentials. So it's very, very smart on the part of the attackers.
Absolutely. All right. So there was one other thing I just kind of wanted to put a pin in. It's not necessarily going to be a pressing threat this year, but it's really something to keep an eye on in this area. And that's deep fakes. So I don't know if you've seen this, David, but it's, this was something from, I think it was 2019. And somebody took a Jennifer Lawrence like press conference after an awards ceremony and put Steve Buscemi's face over Jennifer's face. And you can see the video rolling here. If you haven't seen this, I would highly recommend, look it up on YouTube, because it's just Jennifer Lawrence's voice, talking about, answering questions about Desperate Housewives or something. The quality of it is both disturbing and amazing. But it's not so much, video that's a concern for phishing, but I mean, you can just imagine the kind of scenarios where people can use deepfakes like this to enhance a phishing attack. You think about it like a spear phishing or a whaling attack, where someone sends like the CEO a message and includes their phone number in there. Someone, the attacker knows that the CEO knows, and they include a phone number in there that's not correct. And that goes to somebody who has some sort of, audio voice modulator or whatever you call it to, sound like the person that the email is supposed to come from. And it's really, kind of scary, what kind of scenarios can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if someone could impersonate the CEO or your boss, or I mean, even worse, important people like the president, or something like that, send out a video or an audio message from someone that you would tend to trust and want to listen to. Just think what sort of, scary actions people might take from that. So yeah, absolutely. And if you watch the video, I watched it just a little bit before we did this chat here. It's amazing how the eye blinking, and as they turn their head, there's no sort of shadow. There's no way to see that this is really a deep fake. It looks completely real. So yeah, amazing.
It is amazing. So those are some of the things, some of the, what we're up against with phishing, but help is on the way. I understand we've got a lot of great companies coming up. David, what are we looking at over the next couple hours?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to learn about security awareness training, which is, hot when it comes to phishing, threat intelligence solutions, zero trust, detection and removal solutions, identity and access management. So lots of really innovative technology on today's event. So with that, Scott, I really appreciate all the insight and stage setting here, but we better go ahead and kick it off.
Let's go.
All right, I've just brought up the poll as we discussed there in our phishing discussion. The poll on the screen is, in your organization, has there been at least one successful email phishing attack in the last year? Yes, no, or not sure. Should be pretty simple, quick, and easy to answer there in the slides window, and I will share the results here with you as soon as we get a good number of responses. I'm not going to give you a hint as to what those results are because I want to make sure I don't skew the results, but lots of responses coming in. Thank you for those. We will have a number of other polls, of course, throughout the event today, and we always appreciate your feedback on those polls, as do today's expert presenters. All right, let me go ahead and share the results now, and 46% of the IT organizations represented on today's event have had at least one successful email phishing attack in the last year. Very interesting, kind of scary to hear. With that, I'm going to now bring in today's first presenter on the EcoCast, who I know has some great solutions for phishing mitigation. Welcome to Roger Grimes, Data-Driven Defense Evangelist at KnowBe4. Roger, great to have you back. Take it away.
Thank you so much, and thanks for everybody showing up for my talk. I'm going to talk about as much as I can talk about how to mitigate phishing, because phishing, social engineering phishing, is involved, according to my research over 22 years, in about 70 to 90% of all successful data breaches. So fighting it, getting rid of it, stopping it as best you can is one of the best things you can do. If you haven't met me before, Roger Grimes, been doing computer security for 34 years now. Just finished up my 13th book and over my 1200 magazine article, and I've been writing about social engineering and fighting phishing attacks and stuff for decades. And there's some of my books. Going to that, I work for KnowBe4. We're the world's largest security awareness training and simulated phishing platform vendor, meaning we're dedicated to trying to help people fight phishing. This is kind of adapted out of a longer talk that I've developed that goes on for about an hour. I'm going to try to cover about 40 slides in about the next 20 minutes, but I hope to give you a really good summary and even point you to some resources where you can learn everything. If you're interested in everything that my brain can think of to tell you and your organization how to fight phishing, you can go to my webinar there. It's a 1-hour webinar, like 99 slides. Or if you want to be bored another way, you can read my 49-page ebook that has the same information in it. But this talk is kind of going to be the Cliff Notes highlights of that talk. But if you want to see more details and get more ideas, you can go read those things. But in general, for any threat, a defender needs to figure out the best combination, the best defense in-depth combination of policies, technical controls, and training to fight that threat. Policies would be things like, to fight phishing would be things like, tell employees, never give out your password to somebody that asks for it in an email, never give out your password to someone that calls you, and things like that. Technical controls and defenses, that's all the software and hardware and things we do to try to prevent badness from reaching the end user. So that would be, the traditional antivirus, endpoint detection response software, anti-spam, anti-phishing filters, content filtering, anything we can do to try to, stop phishing and stuff from getting to the end user, but also giving the end user education, because no matter how great your policy and technical defenses are, there is some amount of phishing and social engineering that will get to the end user through email or the web or SMS messages or even phone calls or in person. And so you want to train your end users on how to recognize badness and then how to treat it, which is hopefully to report it to IT or IT security or the help desk, or to delete and ignore it. But you want to give the best combination, defense and depth combination of policies, technical controls, and training to help prevent bad things from being able to reach and get inside of your environment in the first place, and have early warning detection if something does get past your preventative controls, and then have incident response and recovery so you can quickly respond to anything that possibly got past your preventative controls. Again, using a best defense combination of policies, technical defenses, and education. And an example of the policies, again, is, every company should have what's called an acceptable use policy that every brand new employee reads and then signs it annually thereafter. And that should include all kinds of cybersecurity things, including tell them what is or isn't allowed, and again, policies that are in there saying things like, hey, don't use the same passwords at work, never share any single password between any two unrelated websites and services, certainly never use your work password out there on your personal sites. Make sure you lock your screen when you're away from your computer, but also, again, some specific phishing mitigation policies, right, where you're teaching them, you need to educate them about phishing and social engineering and some of the things I will tell you today, and then how they should treat it, and how they should report it if they think if they've been a victim of a potential phishing attack, they should always report it. And if they think they've clicked on a link or been compromised by something, they definitely need to report it. But you want to have every employee read and sign this acceptable use policy. And I would say it's always good to have a specific phishing mitigation policy where you're talking about phishing and how every employee can do their best to fight it and how you do education and things like that. And that's because, phishing's involved in 70 to 90% of all successful data breaches. It needs to be covered in the acceptable user document, but also specifically. People need to be taught specifically about it because it's very, very, very commonly used to compromise employees and then compromise the environment. And, of course, training documents and content we'll talk about more. And then consequences if an employee doesn't follow through maybe in trying to prevent phishing. Although we're definitely believe at KnowBe4 and more carrot and less stick, but certainly, many companies, hey, if you fell it once or you fell it for the 8th time, possibly we let you go or something like that. But I do think you do want to have very specific phishing mitigation policies to tell people what to do, like, hey, you want to tell them hover over the link before and make sure that it's a good link before you click on it. If you're not sure whether the email is valid or not, call the sender on a legitimate, phone number. If you think that you're being phished, report it to IT or IT security. At KnowBe4, we have this phish alert button that you can install on the email client, which makes it really easy. The end user, if they open up an email and they're like, this could be a phish, they can report it just by clicking, a little macro, click on that button, and it sends it to IT or IT security. IT security can analyze it and determine whether or not it was a real risk or not. So you should make it easy, teach people what to do and how to treat phishing things. Again, you want to let them know that hopefully you're doing security awareness training. Hopefully you're doing it at least once a month. You want to let employees know that you do that. Say, hey, we're going to be not only teaching you about how to fight cybersecurity bad things, but we're also going to do simulated phishing campaigns. You need everybody. This is not a question anymore. Every company should do simulated phishing and let the employees know that they do it so they can expect it and how it's done. Not when it's going to be done specifically, but that you do it. So you need to let people know that you do that. And again, you want to give them kind of specific phishing mitigation policies like hover over all URLs to verify it before you click on it. Don't install unauthorized software. Don't give login credentials in response to an email or a call. Use multi-factor authentication when you can, that sort of stuff. And you can create policies, specific policies, like if you want to prevent business email compromise scams where someone gets like a fake invoice request or gets a request to go get gift cards or something, you can create a policy that says everybody must verbally confirm with the requester before they go do that thing or change wiring instructions. A simple policy that everybody's expected to follow will help significantly decrease the risk of phishing. Technical controls and defenses, certainly you want to have up-to-date antivirus or endpoint detection and response software. The endpoint detection and response software seems to be more viable. More viable against today's threats. You can even go to something like, if you think you might have a virus or a malware program, you could even submit that to Google's Virus Total at virustotal.com. It's got like 75 antivirus engines, and that will scan that. Intrusion detection is a really good thing to have today, host-based intrusion detection that's installed on every device, and also network intrusion detection that might catch threats going across the network. Everybody's got to have a firewall. I don't think firewalls are all that capable of stopping today's threats, especially phishing attacks, but it can't hurt to have an up-to-date, appropriately configured firewall. I do think everybody should have phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication where they can. It decreases the risk. About half of phishing attacks try to trick somebody out of a password, and if you're using multi-factor authentication and you don't have a password, then it's not going to work. So I think everybody should use phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication when and where they can. If you don't know what phishing-resistant MFA is like, I write about it a lot on LinkedIn and Twitter if you're interested, a lot of articles about that. We've got lots of documentation you can even download from KnowBe4 about that. I'm a big believer in MFA, but I just think that you want to use something that's not easily phishable, and unfortunately a lot of MFA is easily phishable. But you should still use MFA when and where you can. You're still going to probably have a lot of passwords as well, and again, make sure you use a different password for every website and service. Also believe in it, every company should enable these global phishing protection standards called Sender Policy Framework, or SPF, and Domain Keys Identified Mail, called DKIM, and Domain-Based Message Authentication Reporting and Conformance, DMARC. DMARC, you don't need DMARC until you use SPF or DKIM. Really what I think everybody should do is use SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. They all work using DNS. To enable SPF, DKIM, and DMARC in your environments, you are setting up a DNS record, at least one DNS record for each of those services. Everybody should enable them. If you don't know what they are, I give a whole 1 hour talk on SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. You should make sure that your company has enabled SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. They use DNS to help a receiver get in an email that claims to be from your domain to prove whether or not it came from your domain. And it does that. Like, here's an email that came from a company called Harlan Clark, is from SunTrust. Harlan Clark makes their checks for SunTrust at the time. And I could open the email header and see that it says SPF passed, DKIM passed, DMARC passed. And what that tells me is that this email really did come from harlanclark.com, and it would be safe to click on it. Same thing here. You see this. Here's an email that was claiming to be from Microsoft. All that is Microsoft Online, and they misspelled the word online, which I don't think Microsoft would do. But when I open up the message header, I can see that SPF failed. So anytime you get an email, if you look at the email header and it says SPF, DKIM, or DMARC has failed, then that's a bad thing. Most email clients today will automatically take any email that fails an SPF, DKIM, or DMARC check and put it into your junk folder. But you should, by default, treat emails that fail SPF, DKIM, or DMARC checks as less trustworthy than they are. Certainly, everybody needs to have content filtering on their email that tries to prevent, phishing and spam attacks in your internet browsers. They're never perfect, but they do cut out. If you have content filtering on your email and your browsing and other things, it will probably cut out 99% of the phishing attacks. Everybody should have one or more content filtering solutions enabled on email and their browsers. I'd say many times multiple ones, because the automated software is just going to catch most of it, and then you only have to deal with 1% of it. There's a lot of software today that has what's called file and URL attachment, and URL detonation, where if you get an email and you click on the email or the link or the file attachment, the software, if you have it, and the software is made by many different companies, including Microsoft and Proofpoint and Barracuda and FireEye and stuff, they will take that URL or file attachment and open it up in a safe sandbox environment and try to figure out if it has something malicious in it. I think it's a good idea to have one of these products that will try to take a stab at whether that file attachment or URL is malicious. They're not 100% perfect, but they're pretty good. Here's an example of the Microsoft one where I was in Office 365 and clicking on this attachment, and before Microsoft had a chance to examine it, I actually put on my screen there, there's a advanced threat persistent scan and process. Hold on, we're making sure your attachment is safe. Again, not perfect. Sometimes it misses stuff, but it's another good defense in depth technique. Remember, no matter how great your technical training is, you do have to have fantastic security awareness training, because for sure, badness, social engineering, and malware will get to your end user, at least from you look at the statistics, once or twice a month. What is the goal of security awareness training? It's to train users to know how to spot bad things. This looks like a scam, and then how to respond, which again, in most organizations should be that they are forwarding those phishing attacks, attempted phishing attacks, to IT or IT security. And that's because IT and IT security needs to know how much attempted phishing is going on, especially if there's some type of coordinated phishing attack that's happening against the environment. If everybody just deletes it and never reports it, then IT would have no idea that there's some huge phishing campaign going on. And at KnowBe4, we're very big believers in that you should train your employees. When they get hired, you should train people at least one. They should have a longer, when they're first hired, and then annually they should have this longer training video or instance where maybe it's, 15, 25, 30 minutes long. And then every month you give everybody 1, 2, 3 minutes of training. And after that training, sometime during that month, you do one or more simulated phishing attacks to see how well, to assess how well they learn the training. And then if people fail the simulated phishing test, they get more training. We do know that companies that do the training and simulated phishing tests significantly reduce the number of employees that will click on a phishing attack, real or otherwise. The average company has what we call a phish prone rate of 30%. About 30% or more of their employees will click on a phishing attack. Once you train them and do the simulated phishing test, it falls below 5%. And since social engineering is involved in the vast majority of attacks, that means you are significantly reducing cybersecurity attack risk. You want to train like you're a marketer, frequently redundant, be entertaining most of the time. I think all of us, when we watch TV, are so tired of certain commercials. Like, if I see that Geico commercial one more time, I'm just going to scream. But there's a reason why marketing does it frequently and redundant. It's because you remember it and it helps them sell the product. The product that you're trying to sell is to decrease cybersecurity risk. So you should be pushing training and security awareness training and telling people to watch out for cybersecurity risk like you're a marketer. And again, you want to train them when they're hired, and annually thereafter, they sit through this longer 15 to 30 minute training cycle that covers more topics. And then you have these ongoing monthly shorter trainings, maybe 1, 2, or 3 minutes long. You do have monthly or more simulated phishing tests. That is a process we know for sure that works. All of our customers that do what I just said there are significantly less likely to be successfully attacked. You can spearfish your employees with anything that they've put out there in the public domain. So if you've seen something on their public profile and social media, it's fair game. Anything the company has publicly announced could be fair game, like, if the company is merging with another company or they've bought some new software. Any of that stuff is kind of fair game to be used in a simulated phishing attack, although always make sure to use general topics when you're doing spearfishing, simulated spearfishing campaigns, because some of the most general stuff, like here's a free Dunkin' Donuts coupon, you get a lot of people that click on that one. Also, teach yourself and your friends, your family, and coworkers how to spot phishing. Let them know that anytime they get a message, no matter where it arrives, whether it's email, the web, or somewhere else, that if the message arrives unexpectedly, that makes it a little bit higher risk. If the sender's asking them to do something for the first time they've never done before, like update wiring instructions or download and read this document, if it's the first time the sender's asked you to do it, you want to be a little suspicious, especially if it includes a stressor event, something like you need to do it now. If you don't do that, we lose the business, or you lose the money, or you lose the discount, or you're going to jail, or your account's going to be locked out. They frequently do things to, the phishers include these stressor events to try to make it more likely that you're going to click on something. And especially if performing that action, if it's malicious could harm you or your organization's self-interest, well, you want to confirm it. You want to call the person on a known, good, legitimate phone number, or go directly to the website and not click on the link that's in the email. You should teach, again, yourself and everyone, like if any message has these 4 traits right here, do not do the requested action until you've confirmed it legitimately somewhere else. If you click on this link here, you can download our red flags of social engineering training. It includes 22 signs of what people should look for in an email, such as maybe the subject and the text of the message don't agree, or the sender of the email is different than when you hit reply to. This PDF poster anybody can download, print, review, send to anybody you like. Click on that link. You can download that PDF, or you can email me at rogerg@knowbe4.com, and I'll send it to you. You do want to teach your end users how to spot the difference between good URLs and bad URLs. Like this email here may look like that it's coming from LinkedIn, but if they hovered over the link, they would see that it was actually coming from LL LinkedIn, not LinkedIn.com. A lot of people might miss that. So you want to teach your end users how to hover over URLs and determine between good and bad links. Now, if you like, here's another PDF. You can go to that link below there, and you can download, print, review, and send to all of your friends and family members the 12 most common tricks used by phishers in creating rogue URLs that then trick people into clicking on them. Again, maybe I've said this once before. Notice I'm being redundant here. You want to train like you're a marketer, frequent, redundant, hopefully be a little entertaining. Don't be send staid training all the time. I've said it twice, almost like I'm a marketer. Also, we believe in using different types of content, videos, posters, games, the whole, hey, report this if you think it's a fish. People kind of think that it's a game, and it helps them report even real phishing attacks. I can't tell you how many times when we told people, here's the fish alert button to report suspected phishing, that they'll say, hey, we detected, the employee will go, we saw your fake phishing attack today. We caught it. And we're like, that wasn't a fake phishing attack. That was a real phishing attack. So make a game out of it. And you want to use different types of messaging. You want to have executive messaging so they know that senior management cares about fighting phishing. You want to have videos and training videos and maybe exams, and you want to have simulated phishing campaigns, emails being sent all the time. You want to have newsletters. You want to have champions, people in your environment that really know how to fight phishing well, in games and contests, where you tell people, hey, if everybody in your department, catches all the simulated phishing tests, you get a free, pizza party or something like that. So we believe that there should be all sorts of opportunities and different types of opportunities that make it fun and entertaining. We think that everybody, what's kind of cool with our software, if someone clicks on a simulated phishing link, it immediately will tell them, oops, you clicked on a phishing link, and these are the 5 things you should have noticed that indicated it was phishing. That's always good. People like that sort of training versus waiting a long time. Also, make sure to keep your phishing training up to date. Like these days, there's a lot of phishing going out on, Russia. And Russia's trying to break into your environment or something. Click here. During COVID, it was all about COVID. So you want to keep up to date on the types of things that you're educating people about. We're also big believers of using some type of easy reporting mechanism like our fish alert button. So if an employee gets some sort of what they think is a phishing attack, they can just click on a button and report it. They don't have to do anything else. It sends it to the IT security team and deletes it from their inbox. Also, get and use good data. Try to find out who your frequent clickers are. Every company's got people that either never click on phishing or on the other side of the spectrum that always click on phishing stuff. Find out who those people are that click on everything and give them more training. With that said, I know we only got a couple of minutes left, but if we don't get to your question today, you can email me at rogerg@know4.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. But with that said, I'm hoping we got a couple of questions. I'd be glad to answer them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic presentation, Roger. We do have just a ton of questions coming in. I'm going to bring up this poll for everyone out there. We want to get your feedback on this. What additional information would you like about the KnowBe4 solution? And I'm not sure even where to start. There's so many questions. I'll just start with this one. They want to know, how would you suggest a small shop that's already running around like crazy, trying to do their jobs, handle 250 users trying to report suspicious emails every day? Any tips there, Roger?
Well, I mean, use our product. Use our product. I mean, you implement it. It takes you an hour or two to set up when you first install it, and it automatically sends out the training and the simulated phishing emails. And when people, respond to a simulated phishing attack, it sends them to more training. That's what the biggest weakness in most companies is training their employees how to spot badness and how to treat it. You can use our product to automate that process, literally hands off, once you set it up the first couple of hours.
Excellent. And then this one's interesting. How do SPF, DKIM, and DMARC help stop inbound spam and phishing when they're applied to outbound emails?
So everybody has to implement it. But when it's implemented, people receiving emails claiming to be from your domain will, people can check to see if it really was from your domain. So these days, every incoming email gets checked. but it will, if you don't enable it on your domain, people that get emails claiming to be from your domain, when they go to check the SPF and DKIM and DMARC status, it will just say none. It won't say success or failure. So all senders and all domains involved in any sending domain should enable it. It's pretty much automatically already enabled in every receiving domain. So it's really up to the senders. And every company, let me say this, every company should enable SPF, DKIM, and DMARC for sure. It helps protect your company and other people.
Excellent. And then here's an interesting one. Why train if you can never get to a phish-prone rate of 0%?
Well, some people do, but I would say this: nothing's perfect. There is no cybersecurity defense that's 100%. Like we all know you should patch your software, right? But no one, if everybody patched 100% of software, unpatched software would not be involved in 20 to 40% of all successful malicious data breaches. There is no cybersecurity defense that is 100%. So what you're trying to do is create the best defense in-depth combination of policies, technical defenses, and training, so that if the technical defenses miss something, then your education picks it up, and vice versa. Risk management, there's no such thing as getting rid of all risk. It's managing existing risks at a level that your company can still afford to operate, and anything that you can do to decrease your risk. That, it's like saying, like, why do we have, why do we have automatic disc brakes on cars if they're always going to crash? Why do we teach people how to drive cars if the average person is going to crash in their lifetime? Well, it's because overall you're decreasing the risk to not only themselves but other people, and hopefully they get in less accidents. Same thing with security awareness training. You're trying to lower the risk.
Yeah, good analogy. I like that. Another question here. What about, is any antivirus product 100% able to detect all phishing attempts?
No, not at all. If someone had that, the world would be to pass to the door, pay an incredibly high premium, and nobody would use anybody else's product. So no matter what they claim, it's never been true. Well, likely never. I was like, get rid of, stop all sin. Good luck.
Right. Let's see. I like this one here. Are there other ways to prevent phishing, like not giving admin rights to the local PC?
Yeah, that certainly helps. That's why that would be in my top 10 things, is that you shouldn't have everybody logged in as admin all the time. It's not as protective anymore because a lot of the threats still work against non-administrator accounts. Like if I capture your password and that sort of stuff, I can then install stuff on your system and then do what's called a privilege escalation exploit, get the local admin, then dump all the passwords and get the service account password, and then take over your whole domain. Having someone not logged in as admin all the time slows down attackers for sure, but it's not in my top 5 things I would do, but it is in my top 10.
Excellent. Let's see. Dan is asking, is there any sort of integration with the report a phishing email button with email clients?
Yeah. I mean, so like our Phish Alert button certainly does that. It integrates with Gmail and Outlook, both mobile and desktop platforms. You install it there and click it. And we do have many partners that have other products that also integrate. They have like their own button, and then that button does whatever their product says to do, plus reports it to us and our back-end product, which is called Phish ER. But I think that everybody should have some type of one-click button, just to make it, the easier you make it on the end user to report phishing attacks, the more likely you're going to decrease the risk of phishing attacks.
Absolutely. See, this is a good one. Paul's asking, does KnowBe4 offer quickly spun up training to help organizations deal with situations such as the Ukraine-Russia conflict? So
yeah, I mean, we do all the time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say, we try to respond. Like, when the Russia-Ukrainian conflict came up, we immediately added to our scams of the week 8 different Russian-Ukrainian scams that people needed to be worried about. We published and talked about them in our blog. But if you literally subscribe to our product and you say use the scams of the week template, it would automatically send simulated phishing attacks that had the Russia-Ukraine topics in there.
Oh, that's cool. So they don't even have to look through the library and try to find new templates. Just use the scam of the week, and they get a fresh template all the time that may be very relevant to what's happening in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. And I know you all did that with the COVID pandemic and things like that as well. So Let's see, another question here. How effective is geofencing in preventing attacks, especially from certain countries?
So geofencing is the idea if I get a login or even a phishing email or something from a particular country, let's say Russia, that it would stop that attack. It has some success. I like to say it's so easy to defeat. Like, so most Russian attacks don't come from Russia, right? They're breaking into other countries. They're using, the AWS and Azure servers in America. So even though they're from Russia, it doesn't appear to your company as if it's from Russia. But there is some value to it. I know people that like block all Russia and Chinese stuff, which I don't necessarily always agree with, but they get less phishing attacks. And also, if you can do, there's some really good stuff where if someone's got like a login from Florida, and then 2 hours later they're supposedly logging in from China. So that's the geofencing. I think they call it geokinetics or something. But the idea that the software looks at, hey, is it possible that Roger could log in from Florida and China 2 hours apart? Probably not likely. So I'm going to block that, or block that account till we figure out what's going on. There's value to that for sure.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. David's asking, how does impersonation email phishing work?
Well, that's where, they're impersonating a person or a brand. That's the most common type of phishing, right? Hey, we're Microsoft, we're Facebook, we're Twitter. The idea is they're impersonating. You can, especially if you don't have SPF, DKIM, or DMARC enabled, or you don't look for it, the person can claim to be anybody. Our emails work that you can claim to be any sender, and your email server will accept it 99.999% of the time. So by enabling SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, if someone's trying to impersonate that they're a particular brand or person from the real domain, then it will at least be flagged as failing the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC checks. They can always claim to be Microsoft or Facebook or LinkedIn and come from another rogue domain, but at least you can verify. You can go, is that domain, okay, it's LL LinkedIn, that's not the real LinkedIn. Let me go see what SPF and DKIM and DMARC looks like and go, okay, it claims it's from LL LinkedIn, and the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC checks say it really is from LL LinkedIn. Well, that's not the real LinkedIn, so I'm not going to click on that link.
Excellent. Brian says that they used KnowBe4 at his previous company, but it was set up via HR. What's the best way at his new company to find more about KnowBe4's training plans and packages?
If you contact KnowBe4 sales at knowbe4.com, you'll end up with what's called a customer success manager, and they'll look at whatever your situation is and figure out what's the best way to set it up. Some people set it up in HR, some people in IT, some people in a dedicated training program, but you really need to work with somebody that can say, oh, this is your setup and this is how you should set up. What I will say is that our customers are pretty satisfied with and the customer success managers make sure that not only do you set it up, but you set it up and configure it correctly and quickly, and that you use it. So it's a win-win for all of us if those three things happen, and I think we have a pretty good high success rate.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we've been very happy here at Actual Tech Media. I take the training every month. Always learn a lot and enjoy it. So, Roger, I'm afraid that's all the time we have here in our live Q&A. I see 28 more questions still there for you in the queue. Maybe you can get back to some of those folks. But thank you so much for being on the event.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for listening to me talk fast.
For more information on KnowBe4, check out the handouts tab there as well. There is a resource which will take you to the KnowBe4 phishing security test webinar that Roger talked about as well in his presentation. All right, so with that, it's now time for our first Amazon $500 gift card announcement. This is going to Kellen McCain from Missouri. Congratulations. We've still got 2 more gift cards to give out on the event today, $500 gift cards, as well as our best question prizes. So with that, let's move on now to our next presentation on today's EcoCast. I'm excited to welcome Matthew Hickey, Senior Director for Solutions Engineering at Sophos. Hey, Matthew, thanks for being on.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Take it away.
All right, great. So again, the topic today is phishing. While phishing has been around for a quarter of a century, it really remains an effective cyber attack technique primarily because it continues to evolve. Advertisers are quick to identify new phishing opportunities, our adversaries are quickly to identify new phishing opportunities, of which, unfortunately, the pandemic, provided a lot of opportunities in that as well. This presentation is going to provide the latest insights into phishing based on an independent survey of 5,400 IT professionals on the IT frontline around the globe. Along with the case study, we're going to talk about some real-world phishing examples. But let's dig right into it. And just kind of set the table for it. According to the Verizon 2021 Data Breach Investigation Report, 36% confirmed data breaches involved phishing. Email continues to be the killer app for infiltrating computer networks. Use these survey results, to evaluate your own phishing security posture and identify ways and opportunities to extend your defenses. So we're going to dig a little bit more into, what the survey looks like. So what we've done with the survey is, before we look at the data, we want to make sure to share a little bit more about the source of this information. Okay? Sophos commissioned an independent research house, Vance & Bourne, to survey 5,400 IT decision makers. All the organizations had between 100 and 5,000 users, and the survey was conducted in January of last year. So Sophos had no role in the selection of the respondents. This is an independent survey and really reinforces a lot of what we've been seeing in the field today. What is phishing? What we've discovered too is that phishing means different things to different people. Our survey reveals that even among IT professionals, there's a wide variation of what people consider to be phishing attacks. 46% of the respondents consider business email compromise attacks to be phishing, while only a third understand phishing to include threadjacking, which is when attackers insert themselves into legitimate email thread as part of an attack. Consider, the extension variation of what IT professionals and how they understand and define phishing. Understanding that phishing means different things to different people is a significant insight for anyone creating or running phishing awareness or education programs. For phishing training to be effective, it's important to ensure a shared baseline definition of phishing so we can learn and understand from that correct context. So be mindful that phishing means different things to different people when providing educational resources for your staff. What we've discovered too is that phishing has increased, obviously, since the start of the pandemic. A lot of people work from home. A lot of people have been clicking on a lot of links and a lot of easy targets that are out there. So 70% of the survey respondents reported an increase in phishing attacks on their organization. All sectors were affected, with central government experiencing the highest increase, 77%, closely followed by business and professional services. While this has little overall variance by sector, the survey did reveal considerable difference in the increase in phishing attacks reported by country since the start of the pandemic. For example, 90% of the respondents in Israel reported an increase in phishing compared to 50% in Italy. Just as there were many different types of phishing email, there are so many different cyber criminals behind them. Skilled adversary groups typically focus their targeted attacks on countries with higher GDP, such as Austria, Switzerland, and Sweden, to maximize their financial return. So don't let up on your anti-phishing efforts. Cyber criminals are increasing their use of techniques, and no industry or country is spared. So let's talk get out of the survey for a minute and really talk about what this looks like in real time. So let's talk about ways that, phishing tricks that really work and how to avoid them. So we're going to talk about here, different people fall for different tricks. So the more information you have about your target, the easier it is to craft convincing phishing lure. So this is just a sample. Social media and people wanting to tell what they're up to on a given basis really provides a really active target here. So in this case, you see that a suspected target really is active on LinkedIn, loves Instagram, posting his recent trip to Marriott. He flies Delta. He's a big Netflix user. He's MCSE certified. So we know a lot about this person just by what he's posting on social media. So let's, understand where the phishing tricks lie. So step one, a lot of what they'll use is curiosity. Attackers play on our emotions in order to get us to fall for their scams. Here, I'd identify the emotional triggers that are there for that. So curiosity is being one of them. We found that pictures of dogs and cats are a very popular way for people to actually, click on a link. Next thing too, let's, identify another way for people to be lured in is by hope. So understand that, hope that the abuse by phishers can range from general messages about, unexpected prize wins and dating opportunities to specific emails referring to job offers and pay increases. Another popular hook to get a target is necessity. Phishers often use a cybersecurity lure, pretending that you're suffering a security breach to make it sound like it's more urgent, make you act now. So, taking everything we know about the specific target, next up, what we're going to do is really build the email. The action may be as simple as clicking on a link or complicated as initiating a wire transfer. One clever trick to writing an effective phishing email is to make the action you wish the target to take inevitable, but not necessarily obvious. For an example, an attacker might send an email that appears to contain clickable links to weight loss products. Or in this case, we understood just from understanding the target that he was a Marriott user, that he was a Delta user, as well as a Netflix user. So that way it was easily to craft a targeted message and a targeted campaign to lure that unsuspecting user. And then finally, the phishing email needs to be delivered to the targets. There are a variety of ways for an attacker to do this. They may simply create a new email account on a generic service like Gmail and send the message using that email domain, or they are traditionally been a lot trickier. Attackers sometimes purchase unregistered domain names, similar to legitimate domain, to change the spelling slightly that isn't so obvious. And then they will send the phishing email that looks very legitimate coming from an outside business-like domain, and it's also possible for attackers to compromise an email account that belongs to a legitimate source and use it as a scam campaign. This is commonly referred to as business email compromise, and it means that even the email of a coworker could potentially be an attacker to phish you. So now you kind of understand from phishing tricks that work. Now, how do we avoid these tricks? So first of all, don't be swayed. Someone who has never met you and never will can nevertheless easily project themselves as an insider, a friend of a friend, perhaps a colleague, or you've worked with electronically but never met face-to-face. With a mixture of information collected from already public data breaches, social media profiles, and historical emails that you've sent or received, even a modestly funded crook without much technical savvy can sound a lot more convincing than dear customer. Also, don't rush to send out the data. Urgency is one thing that they rely on. So don't rush out. Never treat it as urgent. It'd be prudent that the other person is demanding total secrecy. Treat it as a suspicious. So keep in mind that urgency is there as well. Don't rely on details provided by the sender when you check up with them. Don't follow instructions, on how to appear inside the email itself. A common ruse is for crooks to hide malicious content, such as data stealing software called macros, inside innocent-looking document files, and then to preface a document with instructions on how to view it correctly. Usually the instructions sound quite plausible, but the crooks are in fact tricking you into turning off various security features that you need. And then, of course, don't be afraid to get a second opinion, a second set of eyes, your security team. It's always important to get a second. Don't rely on yourself. If something looks suspicious, get a second pair of eyes on it, and that'll be helpful as well. So let's take a little bit about what you can do to prevent it. Awareness is a big thing. So I want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that as well. If we go back to our survey, most organizations run cybersecurity awareness programs. 90% of the organizations we surveyed have implemented a cyber awareness program to address phishing, with an additional 6% planning to set one up. So it really addresses the majority of people out there in the IT world. The most popular approach is the computer-based training. It's used by 58% of organizations. Over half use human-led training, and 3% run phishing simulations. 16% of the organizations combine all three techniques, and it's probably best practices too, and not just relying on computer-based training, but also using a combination of both human-based training, human-led training, as well as phishing simulation in their awareness programs. So kind of best of all worlds. Almost 2/3 of phishing awareness programs were implemented between 1 or 3 years ago. So it's relatively new, reflecting organizations' response to what we've seen as a shift in attacker technique in the middle of the last decade. Improvements in cyber defense against these web-based attacks in the mid-2010s forced adversaries to switch to new vectors such as email, which in turn created a very strong need for user education programs. As I always tell people I talk to in information security, email is still the killer app. Everyone uses it, everyone clicks on it, whether it's email, whether it's SMS text. It's still the killer app to deliver malware to the end user. Given the widespread increase in phishing since the start of the pandemic, it's encouraging that 98% of the organizations had their phishing awareness program in place before COVID-19 hit. Thanks to these programs, employees will have been well placed to withstand the barrage of phishing emails that came over the last year. So what you want to be sure to is regularly review and update your phishing awareness materials, make them relevant, and activities to ensure that they are still relevant and engaging for your customers. So let's, assess the impact of the user awareness program. So almost all, organizations running a user awareness program to address phishing assess the impact of the efforts. Measuring and tracking results enables organizations to, optimize programs to improve results. Half of the organizations track the click rate on phishing emails. This is a great metric to get. While a negative measure, it focuses on failing for the scam. Click rate provides IT teams with data to help them target awareness programs when they are most needed and tailor content to reflect realities within their organization. The more data points you get, both positive and negative, that you can track, the better. And even going beyond of what click rate is, but it's also great to get the data of what type of device they're connecting with. Are users more susceptible to clicking links when they're on their mobile versus when they're on their laptop? That data is important as well. So then you can actually target your training for not only your mobile users, but also your regular users as well. Because sometimes people in their mobile device may be using it when they're a little more relaxed, watching TV, multitasking. So that data point is actually something that largely gets missed by a lot of these phishing campaigns. So let's talk about, Sophos has a lot of different ways to get data from various attacks, and what we've rolled out over the past few years is that we actually have a rapid response team. It's like the SWAT team that you call in case you've been compromised, and you have the capability to call us up and we could remediate any issues that may have occurred on your network. It's a really great service, but what we've got from this is some really telling case studies and stories. You could go to our website and download them. We call them case books. What I want to do is talk a little bit about one we've had right now. So we've looked at the state of phishing and phishing awareness and training program. So what we want to remind ourselves of, why we're here, why it's so important. I'd like to share this case study here that we're talking about. Is the sister company experiencing a major ransomware attack. So we're going to take it through start to finish and what happened here. So in the beginning, the attack started when an employee received a phishing email. The email appeared to come from a colleague in another office, so it's that familiarity, that the trust that was built there automatically. It's likely that the attackers had accessed that coworker's email account to trick a fellow employee into trusting this message. Common technique, right? So something else has been compromised within the network. The message was very short and written in poor English, which should be a trigger for that user as well. It asked the employee to click on a link, again, setting that sense of urgency. The link was in fact a malicious web link. Okay, so when a person clicked on it, it enabled the attackers to get the access credentials to the domain admin. So what we found in doing the triage for this, the rapid response team believes the phishing email was sent by an initial access broker, a cyber criminal that focuses on securing access to organizations' environments and then selling that access to other adversaries for use in range, including ransomware attacks. So basically, this is it's a service that people offer to attack networks. So it's a turnkey thing. So you don't need a lot of expertise for it. It's a turnkey service someone could purchase online. In this case, the victim's IT team stepped in, shut down the phishing attack, but that appeared to be the end of it. But guess what? 8 weeks later, however, a malicious actor, installed and ran two tools, Cobalt Strike and a PowerSploit PowerView on the victim's computer. These are commercial tools that we're seeing being leveraged by adversaries to penetrate user networks. The attackers probably used PowerView to perform network reconnaissance, while Cobalt Strike provided persistence, enabling them to remain on the network. Just to let you know, going back, if you have other tools on your network, if you're seeing any remnants from a Cobalt Strike type of artifact, you definitely are probably in a breach situation and you want to do follow-up action. That's a telltale sign that we've discovered is that your network is under attack. For about 2 weeks after the attackers explored activity, everything went quiet. Our rapid response team believes this is because the initial access broker was looking for a suitable buyer for the access credentials. So they actually are selling now this access to the network that has been compromised. Once sold, the new owners were quick to take advantage of the purchase. They soon appeared on the network, installed Cobalt Strike on more machines, and began to collect and steal information. 3 months after the original phishing email, the attackers unleashed rival ransomware at 4 a.m. local time and demanded $2.5 million in ransom. So just how low and slow they were, they took their time. For about 2 weeks after the attackers' exploratory activity, everything went quiet. The rapid response team believe this is because they were looking for a suitable buyer for these credentials. And then we go back to 11 weeks. Once sold, the new owners were quick to take advantage of the purchase, and they were they were able to expand and on this current network. And then 3 months after the original phishing email, the attackers unleashed the ransomware, at 4 a.m. local time and demanded a $2.5 million ransom. So this will take you from start to finish from a typical attack. And if you see from the beginning, it came from a phishing email. So that's a long period of time that the customer was on the network. It wasn't one attacker. It was someone that came in and infiltrated. It sold that data to an outside source, and what that outside source did was leverage that information to land and expand on that network itself. So let's take some takeaways we can for our phishing 2021 takeaways and how we can actually take what we've learned from the surveys and from what we've seen this past year and apply them on our network as well. So first of all, like for example, when educating end users, remember that phishing means different things to different people. So we saw the differing understandings of phishing. Be mindful that phishing means different things to different people. So when providing educational resources and user training, you want to take this into effect and offer context to the training that you're providing your users. As I said before, even making sure to identify, how users are accessing email, where they're most vulnerable. That's becoming important as well. Don't let up on your anti-phishing efforts. Okay, I saw the previous presenter who talked about repetitive, act like a marketing person, exactly how you want to do it. There's been a widespread increase in phishing since the start of the pandemic. Don't let up on your efforts. Cyber criminals aren't letting up as well. They're increasing their use of the techniques, and no industry or country has been spared, as you saw within the survey results that we discovered. And if you're part of that, minority that doesn't have a, phishing awareness program, make it a priority. 90% of the organizations that you saw have a program. If you're in the 10% that doesn't, let's do it. Let's do it today and make sure that you have a program in place. And it's easy to implement, it's easy to roll out, and it's something that's definitely required for education on the end user. The simulation techniques are an easy way to do it for the end users as well. And then, of course, ensure your user education materials are still relevant. Most user education programs have been around for 1 to 3 years. Regularly review them, update your phishing awareness materials, and make them relevant to what's happening today, not only in the world, but also in cybersecurity. And then, of course, user results. All organizations measure the results of all of their programs. Be sure to regularly review your user education programs in light of the results of your assessments, and focus on recognizing and celebrating positive behaviors in your users. I always like the carrot and stick approach. Don't just notify your users when they've clicked on a link or did something that they shouldn't have, but what you also want to do is make sure that you reward the people that have spotted phishing attacks, and reward that as well, and gamify it. Have departments that have been very good at spotting links, as well as making sure that you can gamify the overall situation and reward positive usage as well. And then, of course, coming from Sophos, there's a lot of ways that we can, at Sophos, help you with this as well. So first of all, AI-powered phishing protection with Sophos email, that combination is very powerful. Our advanced machine learning identifies imposters and business compromised email. We'll analyze the tone and wording. So this is all AI-driven or computer-driven. We'll identify impersonation targets based on historic. So we're in a unique position at Sophos too, is actually seeing across multiple different threat surfaces, whether it's email, whether it's endpoint, whether it's firewall. We have the capability then to identify domains, URLs, techniques, and apply them to any model that we've put into place. And also scanning for the imposters. Real-time scanning blocks social engineering. Spot key phishing indicators, the obvious things. Identify anomalies and headers. Things your users would take a while to do as well. And then, of course, pre- and post-delivery protection stops malware. Protect against URL rewriting, dynamically react to threats. Sophos email search and destroy capabilities take it one step further, even if you're an Office 365 user out there, by directly accessing Office 365 mailboxes to identify and automatically remove emails containing malicious links and malware at the point of the threat state changes before a user ever clicks on them. So this is for those Office 365 users out there. You have users that have had a email delivered in their inbox, or multiple users. We identify something that has occurred, say, an hour ago. We identify as malicious. We can go back and say, okay, where else has this email been delivered in inboxes, and will search and destroy and remove those emails as well. So it's a very powerful tool. It's leveraging both a human as well as the advanced ML engines that we have built into our products, but also leveraging the full telemetry you're getting from all of the Sophos and Sophos labs. And I guess that's it for now. I'll open up for questions.
Great presentation, Matthew. Really appreciate that. We do have some questions for you coming in from the audience. While we take those questions, I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone out there. We want to get your feedback on this. It says, what additional information would you like about the Sophos solution? And so let's see. First question here, I wanted to ask you, Matthew. They're asking, Mandy's asking here, do fishermen, the new term we coined here, I guess, do they really go through so much effort for an individual target? Do you think there's some sort of cost benefit, analysis done, or is it more of a volume-based business where they just blast out to everyone?
Well, there's multiple ways to look at that. So yes, I'm sure there's a shotgun approach where they're just doing the business case where they're just going to cast a wide net. And then, of course, we understand there's spear fishing. But now there's also whale hunters out there. Well, they'll target the CEOs, the CFOs of large organizations and really drill down to them because guess what? They have the most power within an organization, and they're the ones who are going to get specifically targeted. And you'd be surprised over the past 3 or 4 years of the embarrassing things that have happened where wire transfers were accomplished, where things were done from that level where they without any double question or second opinion, the CFO's secretary sent them an email about a wire transfer that needed to be done in order to cover a PO or cover someone's travel. It was done blindly, and guess what? The money's gone. So that's been happening, and there's multiple different ways to do it. But when it comes to those, high-end targets, I'm guaranteed they're combing through and providing that type of level of detail for specific attacks.
Excellent. Let's see. Don is asking, does the Sophos solution integrate with Microsoft 365?
Yes, it does. A number of our solutions integrate with Office 365. Our email protection is one of them, where we have the capability to actually scan inbound, outbound email, provide that type of protection for phishing and kind of a layered protection approach. But as I said before, it integrates in a way too where, say, for instance, an email threat hasn't been identified yet. It enters your network, but we identify it 10 minutes later. What we then can do is say, okay, this is a bad email, this URL exists. I'm going to go look for this similar email within your organization, and I'm going to remove it from those inboxes in Office 365. It's a very powerful tool, integrates with Office 365, and that's going to be carried forward with other services within Sophos, primarily our MTR service. So we'll have the capability then when we're doing that type of monitoring of your network, we'll extend to your Office 365 environment for looking for threats to doing remediation as well.
Nice. Very nice. Let's see. Another question. Jeffrey's asking about notification. Like when a user is compromised, are there any sort of notification options available?
So within Sophos, we can, for everything we're doing, for example, Search and Destroy is a perfect example. There's our central console, which really is the central pane of glass to manage all of your Sophos security deployments. Included in that is email. Included in that is our phish threat or our phishing simulation solution. And we'll have the capability then to actually identify users that are are most troubling, actually have really tested very poorly with our simulation, and then actually conversely have actually been notorious for clicking on emails and being that behavior as well. So we can correlate that data to provide reporting for you to be really more targeted in your training as well.
Nice. Vince is asking why companies are choosing Sophos when there are some options available there in Microsoft 365 already.
Well, it's provide that layered approach to security, and not just depending on one user to do that. And we have a little bit of an advantage over Microsoft in that we have a broader reach of telemetry data that they may not have. For example, we not only we cover everything from endpoint to firewalls and everything in between, and that data that we're getting is really a cross section of that to provide additional protection to the network. It's a defensive depth approach. It's the reason why other people put different endpoint solutions that don't rely on Microsoft as well. But it has the way to provide a layered approach to protecting your Office 365 environments. And that includes other services that Sophos offers, and the fact that we can tie that into our rapid response and our MTR services is very effective as well.
Nice. And this is a good question here. What are the two most important tactics
that users can put in place to protect against phishing attacks?
Well, the two most important tactics is just really being diligent and understanding that you're not in this alone. So I think the big thing is don't be afraid to get a second opinion is always a big thing. Like I see it. Don't be so eager to click on a link. So the big thing to take advantage of, right, is that curiosity and the rapidness to act. So getting a second opinion is important, but don't rely on the details provided within the sender when you click on them. So being cautious. I think those two things go hand in hand.
Nice. Well, Matthew, I'm afraid that's all the time we have here in our live Q&A session. There's still a ton more questions there for you in the electronic queue. Maybe you can get back to some of those folks. But really great presentation. Thank you for being on the event today.
Thank you very much.
And for more information on Sophos, check out the handout that's available for download there in your audience console. It is the Phishing Insights 2021 infographic. Tons of good stats there to help you, better justify perhaps some additional phishing prevention and mitigation solutions. So make sure that you check out that resource, again, in the Handouts tab. All right, so with that, it's time to keep the EcoCast moving here. And I'm excited now to welcome our next presenter. That is Brian Osterman, Solutions Engineer at Recorded Future. Brian, it's great to have you on. Take it away.
Brian Osterman. I'm one of the engineers here at Recorded Future. I'm going to be walking you through today specifically, typo squatting, phishing attempts, how to identify them, and remediation process. As a quick high level, I'm going to run through, again, for those who are new, how the product works, what exactly we're doing as a company. We like to talk a lot about this intelligence-led security, right? We are a intelligence company first and foremost. One of the big things of that is obviously data. So in our whole process of, just gathering data, working, trying to protect, you really need quality intelligence. You need it as fast as possible because that's really what's going to give you the leg up in life, in the world. We've had threats coming from all different areas, both physical and online. The big idea here, right, is let's identify what is going on. Let's figure out where exactly it's coming from. And then let's have methodologies that we can institute on top of that to either protect in response or ideally, right, prevent and be proactive. So basically, as a product, we have over, I think, near 1 million or just over 1 million different sources that we collect from. This is massive machine collection endeavor, basically. I like to kind of describe it as almost Big Brother-esque, where, we take in all this data. We have machines that analyze it. Typically, it ends up being about, within us seeing something, it is usually surfaces in our platform within about 5 minutes. So we process about 400 events a second. This is some high level of, hey, all the things that we grab, we process several different languages in depth. We have basically a Google Translate for a total of 36 or 40 languages. There are 16 that we do in depth. All of the intelligence that we collect is largely machine gathered, but then we do augment that with this INSICT group, which is our own internal analysts. They go out and they write reports. They produce those for our customers. When we look for any item or we pick up any item, person, place, thing, noun, indicator, right, whatever that is, we're also looking for the activity that surrounds it. So this feeds in when we're looking for stuff like phishing, because when you have a domain that's spun up, what is the activity that's surrounding it, right? We can't just take anything down for any arbitrary reason. We have to be able to actually prove that it's being used for malintent. We have to prove the malice, prove that it is infringing on our brand or on our company, whatever that might be, just by the nature of the internet, right? Like if I wanted to, I could spin up a typo squatted domain of any company, any website, and do nothing and just sit there. That's completely legal and you wouldn't be able to take it down. So by identifying the activity that's surrounding it, not just in terms of, hey, who is discussing it, where is it being mentioned, but what else? Like, hey, is this referenced alongside a particular piece of malware? Is this being discussed are there several hosts, several DNS servers, right, that are going to the same host? What is that host doing? Is it reported for phishing? What about the mail servers? Do they have any other activity surrounding it as well? So the idea is, grab all this data, surface it as fast as possible, surface it in a very easily digestible way so that you have it on your fingertips, you can access it, you can understand, and then basically take it from there and start the remediation process. I'm gonna kind of just stop sharing out the deck because that's really all I like to show is really the main couple screens about how we collect certain data. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip over into our actual product. It's a lot more interesting in my eyes anyway. And we're actually going to dive through and look at specific, hang on, not that. Sorry, I fat fingered it. I want to look at specific things. So for example, what we generally do when we start working with a company, the way we start this process for identifying typo squats is within our product, we have several different solution areas that we cover. One of them is this brand intelligence, which I'm really going to start to walk through here. When we start working with any organization, we basically have them hand over a list of all their domains, all their IP addresses, the brand names that they own, operate, maybe products that they sell, things like that, right? All the parts that are or make up their brand, both from a digital perspective, but also the physical perspective. We then take that, put them in our product in the form of these different watch lists. So we're going to be focusing primarily on domains here. And in here, when we have the domains, all of the domains that we have that are externally facing or ones that we want to keep track of in general, hence the watch list, things we want to watch, we then use those as a basis to start looking for and alerting on potential typo squats that could be occurring. So you'll see I have a lot of kind of boilerplate data here in my farm where, I'm grabbing a lot of Amazon, Apple, Google, big type of companies, big domains that probably have a million typo squats spun up in there, right? Within here, we see several. So for example, if I just come in and click on one, this is really where we start with the information, right? We go through, we process it, we collect it, we stitch it all together in platform, all those different relationships, and then we provide what we call intelligence cards, which a nice way to think about them is they're like baseball cards, right? So, hey, here's a summary of all of the information around the particular domain that could be interesting or could indicate that there's something going on here that we need to be aware about, we need to start to take action on. In this case, we have this accounts.google.com.fac3b0000k.ga, right? Clearly, this isn't a Google domain. Very obviously a typo squat. Now, something that I point out is we show you exactly how many references we have to any item that we're collecting or showing in these intelligence cards. 2, we do provide a score. So you have that sort of red light, green light, percentage-based system of what is the chance or what is the percentage that this is actually a malicious or a risky item. But then we have these risk rules, right? So everybody has whenever there's a scoring on anything or some sort of a determination system, there's always constraints that are in place. We like to be very transparent about all the things that we're doing because we have that machine intelligence, because there's a lot of data that we sift through. We don't want you to necessarily have to take our word for it, be able to come in, see exactly what we're saying, see where it came from, and see why we're saying what we're saying. So when we say this is a 68, this is based off of 4 out of 45 risk rules that have triggered. One of the things we'll do along this is trigger what we call dynamic alerts or dynamic abuse alerts, basically highlighting all the activity, taking the heavy work out of needing to identify if something is good, bad from you, and really doing that lifting for you. So if I come in and I click on this dynamic alert, I get information about what is going on here. The overall evidence summary where it's been identified as a typo squat of Google. I have DNS records that I could go to. This might take a second to load. That's just my internet here in the city. We've been having, I'm based out of New York. We've been having some issues with spectrum in my neighborhood the past couple of days, but you have this record, this available data here to start to sift through and have on hand. Right, there we go. So here's some of the whois record data. Here are the DNS records of what is going on surrounding it, right? IP addresses that might be registered to, name servers, things like that. But if we just focus on the intelligence card and the data we have on that specifically, the risk rules, we can come down, and this is the evidence that we would actually use to help trigger a takedown, right? It is being picked up as a phishing lure. What we term is we're going to use common phrases that are used for phishing and for like account takeover type operations, such as account or Google or Microsoft or log in, Apple, sign up, things like that, where it would prompt people to put in their credentials. We trigger those as potential lures. So when you have a domain that's spun up that has any of those key phrases, it'll trigger this rule saying, hey, this is a phishing lure. This might be a phishing domain. The next would be really the first rule that tends to pop up around any one of these domains, right? Typically what's going to happen is it's going to be a new domain. There won't be that much activity out there. They're probably just starting to send emails or starting to do whatever they're doing with it. So the first thing that you're really going to see is the certificate being registered or being issued, the domain being spun up. In this case, we're identifying it as a DNS sandwich for Google domain, meaning on either side or in the middle of the actual string for the domain, there's Google in there somewhere, right? Google.com as a whole piece in there. So that's one rule that will trigger pretty much immediately and is a good indication when you're trying to identify type of squats or getting alerted on type of squats to start looking in. Hey, this has just been registered. It's been issued a certificate, which means that now it might start down the abusive process of actually starting to do the bad things that we don't want. The type of squat similarity pops up just about the same time as that. Hey, this was registered. It has a DNS sandwich, possibly for Google.com. And then the last one is interesting, where we're saying it's resolving to an unusual IP. So there are two IP addresses that this is resolving to that we've identified as having unusual activity. We could just click on those from right here. But another interesting way to do it is if we just click on the additional DNS information and start to dig in from there. So this particular one isn't a great example because the IP address is generally low risk, which in my mind, when we don't have any rules that are triggering on it, that means there's really not much going on. If we click on this, we see, hey, there is a 5 unusual risk score. But at the same time, that activity is that the CIDR block has a lot of high risk activity, which can indicate that even though this guy might not be doing it, typically people will have the IPs in sets of blocks. So they might be using something next to it. So when you have a high risk IP in the same CIDR block, that's a good indicator that there's something going on as well. If I look at, I believe this is another one here from the same piece. But basically, we would start to dig through the different records. So if we had an IP address that was being used for phishing, did have that malicious activity, we could start to basically utilize that as all the evidence for takedowns. So if I'm going to see if I can grab a better example for you guys here. Let's just try this one. So here's another good example, right? Identified as a recently active weaponized domain for phishing. So meaning we have actually seen and observed phishing behavior as a rule that's triggered, right? It is resolving to a host of many other DNS names. So, this IP address has several things going on, has several other phishing domains that are registering to it, and it's resolving to this suspicious IP. We can again do that domain lookup or the lookup of the DNS information and start to see that. I'm going to click right here and pull back this one. And right there, right? So here's the IP address that we are saying is suspicious, that specific typo squat that we're looking at is registered to, or the host of that specific typo squat. The very first rule that we're seeing is phishing host coming from fish tanker ports where it's being reported as a host of 2 active phishing URLs. But if it's a host for 2 phishing URLs, and it's also a host of many other DDoS names, there's a good chance that it's being used as just a host overall for phishing, especially when we are looking at the potential typo squat that's being registered to a known phishing host. That, in my eyes, is malicious. And if it's infringing on our brand, this is something that we would probably want to take down. So, back on the intelligence card for that domain, right underneath the risk rules and the DNS information, there's a couple pieces I'm going to highlight. One is this technical links, which is if we see connections between this and other malicious entities, such as malware or other high-risk IPs, other phishing domains, domains that are being abused, malware signatures, things like that, it's all going to be pulled out. But once we make that determination, once we come to the conclusion that this is bad, this is something that's infringing on our brand, it is potentially harming us internally or our customers. We don't want this out there because it is going to harm our organization in one way or another. It is showing malicious activity. We have the proof of it. We can just come down, click this button here to go to our Phish portal, and we can actually start the takedown process for you. So if you don't have anything set up right now, you don't have a methodology in place, we have partnerships that we work through basically to facilitate that takedown process on behalf of our customers. Basically, you come in, you say, this is the domain that I want to take down. Here's the evidence that we grabbed from Recorded Future. Or here's all the evidence that we have, because, again, we're building a legal case here. We want as much evidence as possible to have that justification. So when we go to take it down, we're ultimately successful. And in the meantime, we can immediately report this to Google for safe browsing. We can report to Symantec or Fish Tank for phishing. Basically, get the word out there that this isn't real, this is phishing. Please don't go to this, right? Please provide mechanisms so our customers don't accidentally go to it. But that's really the big process, right? We go through, we use basically our data to, one, look at what the primary domain is that you want to monitor, and then based off that, look for variations on that domain, whether it is things tacked on after the brand, before the brand, or surrounding it. And that would be the typo squat, or the ingest, right? The sandwiching. Typo squat as in misspelling. So instead of serve FTP here, hypothetically saying this is real, instead of serve FTP, it could be serve FIP, serve FLP, right? Or even instead of like E, you do A, right? Typo squats. Or the homographical similarity where, again, you're looking at swapping letters to make it look visually very similar to a real domain that you have. But we gather all that information. It's all in one place, so you don't necessarily have to go through all these other systems. Other data that we'll pull in specifically that I like to highlight as sources for this is, one, we have URL scan data, which is a great free tool to look up information on any website. It'll give you a screenshot of it. It'll pull out any other indicators that are associated with it. So that'll be hashes, IPs, other domains, things like that, how it's being routed. If you're going to go that route, you could also use our browser extension over it and basically pull back all of our intelligence card data on any item that's showing up through that scan. Another great resource that we have that comes in for these specifically is Bitdefender. So we have Bitdefender data that comes into the product, and that, again, allows us to better identify when there is like malware distribution and malicious behavior on or towards specifically domains. But as far as what I had planned to walk through, this is really it, right? We have several domains that are populated, that we're keeping track of. We're populating these typo squats. We have the justification for why this is a typo squat, why this is malicious, from both being weaponized for phishing techniques, for being on a list, for having phishing hosts surrounding it, for being registered to or aligned to a actual phishing host that's been reported as hosting phishing sites. right? All good evidence that we can use to actually trigger a takedown. But I guess at this point, right, we've got about 10 minutes left. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to start taking them now and answer to the best of my ability.
All right, great presentation. Thank you so much, Brian. We do appreciate that. I just brought up the poll question for everyone out there that says, what additional information would you like about the recorded future solution? And we do want to get your feedback here on this poll. We've got lots of great questions coming in electronically, and we do appreciate those. The Recorded Future team is here answering those questions electronically, so we're not going to do live Q&A here, or verbal Q&A, I should say, but they are taking your questions electronically. So I'll keep this up for a few moments, and then we'll move on. And we've got one more quick poll before I introduce you to our next presenter. And I'll put up that poll while we announce our second Amazon $500 gift card. Excellent. Let's see, David out there in the audience said, great info, appreciate that. I know Brian appreciates that as well. I really enjoyed the Recorded Future live demo. That was cool to see. I hadn't seen the product in action before, so that was awesome. All right, let's get a few more responses here to the poll question. We do want to get your feedback on this poll. Brian and the Recorded Future team do want to hear what the next step is that you'd like to take. Thank you, Deepak, for the great feedback there. You're enjoying the sessions. Love to hear that. All right, thank you to everyone who responded to the poll. We do appreciate your feedback. Now I've got one more poll question I want to ask you, and that is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing solutions at your company, specifically around preventing phishing? Could be end user education, could be security, could be detection and removal, type solutions. So we want to get your feedback here on the poll, and I'll leave that up while I announce our next Amazon $500 gift card winner. This one's going to Sandy Herrera from Utah. Congratulations, Sandy Herrera from Utah. We've still got another Amazon $500 gift card to announce at the end of the event. And of course, don't forget about the best question prizes as well. All right, thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll. We appreciate your feedback. With that, it's now time to move on to our next presentation on today's event. I'm excited now to welcome Swaroop Sham, Group Product Marketing Manager at Okta. Swaroop, take it away.
Welcome to this webinar, where we talk about stopping account takeovers and identity thefts by leveraging a modern identity system. We believe this identity system can not only delight your customers, but also secure the customer experience. First, a quick introduction. I'm Swaroop, a Group Product Marketing Manager at Okta, focused on customer identity. I know a lot of you are very familiar with Okta, but for those of you who are new, Okta is the leader in identity and access management for employees, customers, and partners alike. We are proud to say we are the Gartner MQ leaders in this category, leading businesses across different verticals trust Okta to securely authenticate their customers. Organizations like Albertsons, Ally, Adobe, JetBlue, CarMax, to name a few, use Okta in their authentication journey for their customers. With that being said, in the recent past, we've seen an acceleration of digital transformation initiatives across businesses and industries. Organizations spanning from insurance companies all the way up to banks and e-commerce retailers have seen a vast growth in their digital efforts. In many cases, we frequently hear that over 10 years of digital transformation has been compressed into months. But all of these transformation efforts lie with common goals to drive revenue and user trust. And what we see is that each of the winners in the space really have three key areas of differentiation, which include unmatched user experience, security and compliance that builds trust, as well as world-class touchpoints across every channel, across every medium and every device. We see that user experience has become really a differentiating journey. But very importantly, security balanced with user experience makes a key difference. It isn't that businesses are not aware of it. A recent survey published by SIFT reports that over 77% of online businesses prioritize delivering a frictionless user experience. But 58% of those same respondents say fraud prevents them from achieving that goal. Well, the challenge is that today, a lot of businesses need to make trade-offs between frictionless access or security. And unless you live in a highly regulated, high-value business, it's unlikely that businesses can offer high levels of friction in their digital experience. And when we look at the security problem, businesses report that they see a brunt of identity attacks. It is so surprising that the same survey reported over 307% of online businesses saw an increase in account takeover over the last 12 months. So that really begs the question that yesterday's security approaches for application and identity security really do not make the cut. And when we look at that, one of the key themes that we see is that passwords, which have been the cornerstone of a digital access experience for many years now, really do not meet the security needs of businesses. We see increasing prevalence of credential breaches, stuffing, phishing, as well as dictionary attacks. And it is pretty easy to guess a user's password. But the use of passwords not just increases security risks, but they also increase user friction. Today, most consumers no longer access your service from a traditional keyboard. Most users are accessing your service from a mobile device, where a traditional keyboard is not prevalent. And having users to enter a complex password, be it 16 characters long or even harder with special characters, isn't the most ideal experience. And finally, from a cost perspective, credential management continues to be a big burden in businesses, where leaders in each of these categories report that IT and support costs are a big drag on the business. And it is not just that users are calling in to either reset or recover, they're also calling in to set up credentials, and all of these lead to high costs from a supportability perspective. Jumping a little bit further into the security part, what we see is that 81% of all security incidents are tied to weak or stolen passwords. That's a pretty well-known fact published by Verizon from a few years ago. But even social attacks such as social phishing or credential stealing software continue to be a big source of identity attacks. So when we look at this new era, this new landscape, what is it that we see that sets the digital champions apart from traditional laggards in the business? At Okta, we have the privilege of talking to a lot of leaders in the space. And through these numerous conversations, we uncovered a number of common recurring themes across the board. What they frequently tell us is that today's security approaches are not good enough. The legacy identity solutions or legacy security investments only offer basic security capability. In many times, these organizations are not even aware of the best practices as well as the architectures to implement a modern consumer security, to implement modern consumer security. They frequently ask us, how do we accurately validate the claimed identity for an authenticated session? But authentication is really one part of that journey. What they're really looking for is a single view of fraud and security that touches upon every customer across every touch point across their entire life cycle. What they really want to do is identify fraud from across the tech stack and use the identity system to balance user experience and security. What this really means was explained to me really from a security executive recently. What they said was that if a user is logging in from a known device or a known IP address, they want the user not to go through MFA. But if an existing session has been compromised or they see suspicious behavior, they want to end the session or prompt the user for additional authentication steps. And finally, what they're really talking about is really moving from a point-in-time view of authentication to a continuous view of authentication, where they want to integrate identity and fraud operations and drive orchestration from a single point of view. So this is where Okta has put a huge amount of focus, where we have been trying to think about the next generation of an identity-centric approach that really focuses on protecting the customers, inspiring customers, and finally delivering growth for the business. For us, we look at these changes as a set of iterative changes that really goes towards delivering a delightful experience. And the first step in that is recognizing what is available and what is being used by customers today. But what we think really is that the businesses of tomorrow will adopt a defense in depth strategy that uses some of the known mechanisms such as passwords today, but setting themselves up towards adopting more modern authentication experiences down the road. So our view of the world is a layered approach that starts with authentication, leverages smart behavioral policies, and finally uses strong authentication using multi-factor authentication when necessary. Let's take a moment to jump into each of these sections in a little more depth. When we think about authentication, we think this is table stakes. A good authentication system should be able to set up great password policy, secure the reset and recovery mechanisms from a password standpoint, detect common and compromised passwords, as well as leverage threat information about bad actors to keep them out of the system. We think this is a strong approach to stopping common password attacks, dictionary attacks, bot-driven attacks, as well as a host of other types of threats and attack mechanisms. We think this is the start. The next layer that smart businesses adopt are essentially an intelligent set of policies. The brilliance of this layer is that it adds minimal friction to the user experience, but captures a lot of attributes about the session and uses that in analyzing risk. This includes analyzing the network, location, travel, device, and a whole host of other heuristic risk signals that could be both native to the identity system or that could be ingested from external systems that feed into the risk analysis layer. All of these systems help in providing an aggregated view of risk for that particular session. Now, we think that this is a very valuable mechanism and that might result in deciding if a user needs additional authentication steps or the user can access the system. Now, when the user needs additional authentication steps, we think a layer like strong MFA becomes very critical in that journey. We know that not all MFA options are created equal. Businesses have the choice of knowledge-based factors, possession factors, inherence factors, and biometric factors. And organizations will make the choice of what's appropriate for their customers based on their user base, the risk involved, as well as the risk appetite acceptable for the organization. They also need to factor what is the right authentication mechanism based on the user journey, including whether it's authentication, credential reset and recovery, or whether it's a right transactional, or it's required from a transactional perspective. We think that based on this, you can reduce the risk of friction, you can offer customers a factor based on their risk and journey, and really help reduce the risk of identity or credential stuffing attacks impacting your application or service. But we all know that the premise of this layers is essentially the use of passwords. And businesses have strongly expressed their desire to moving away from a password-driven world to a passwordless world. And we think a lot of businesses have made the first cut towards this new ideal state. So I have some statistics from a survey that Google published a while ago, where they found that when users used a passwordless authentication mechanism, using something like a security key, like a YubiKey for example, they were able to reduce the risk of all types of attacks, including automated attacks, bulk phishing attacks, and targeted attacks across the board. This was even more secure than other authentication mechanisms, including SMS delivered code, on-device prompts, email and knowledge-based factors, as well as phone-based factors. They were able to reduce the likelihood of an attack. Now, this offers strong promise from a security standpoint, but we know that this is only half the equation. The question then becomes, what about user experience? This is where passwordless authentication mechanisms using options like security keys were not just effective from a security standpoint, but also were very effective from a user experience standpoint. Businesses frequently reported that when they used security keys, they were able to authenticate with less than half the time. So this is an authentication experience that finds the balance between security and usability. And it's with this mindset that Okta has set out to build a host of different passwordless authentication mechanisms into the platform. Our approach is to offer a range of different passwordless options based on the needs of individual users and based on different characteristics from an authentication standpoint. The host of options inside of the Okta platform include email magic link, WebAuthn, and FastPass authentication. We realized that in a consumer world with a huge varied list of users and huge user base of different needs and different system requirements, businesses will likely require different options based on their situation. The first option, email magic link, allows you to use a live link that is delivered to the user's inbox based on the registered email address provided by the user. Now, this is a very effective way of bootstrapping users into higher assurance models and without having any sort of device dependency. Another way of offering passwordless authentication is using WebAuthn. So for those of you who are not very familiar, WebAuthn is a standards-based passwordless mechanism that was promoted by the FIDO organization that uses authenticators that are native to your device, such as Face ID, Touch ID, or Android ID, to allow browsers to authenticate users and allow them to access digital services. The beauty of the system is that biometrics such as like a Face ID or Touch ID continues to remain on the end user's device. And this is very, very phishing resistant and really delivers a seamless passwordless experience. The other area where Okta has been investing is what we call as Okta FastPass, where we deliver a consistent passwordless experience across any device from anywhere. We know that services like WebAuthn are a very effective method of offering passwordless authentication, but there is a strong dependency on either a device or a token being present with the user, and this adds additional cost or dependency on having a newer device. FastPass plans to mitigate that gap by offering an experience where when the user logins from a registered device, they are presented with a host of different authentication mechanisms where Okta Verify is present on those devices and allows the user to authenticate from those particular devices. Now here in this case, the user can authenticate from their home, from their office, or from anywhere in between, and they can access a host of business services like, maybe it's an email app or a communications app, and it delivers really a consistent experience across any platform, as long as the user is accessing from a known registered device. So with that being said, and with those outcomes being presented, we think passwordless authentication really has an identity-centric approach of stopping account takeover attacks. But it is just not passwordless approach. It is the host of different options that are available inside of Okta to protect the customer against any form of identity attack and build really a trust model across the user journey. We think that's just the start. We also think that solving for fraud using a strong identity and access management policy or a structure is very foundational to this journey. Finally, we also think that a modern identity system should not just be about security, but it should inspire customers to access your service. We think this can be done through reducing user friction and enabling strong authentication without forcing users to entering a really complex password or accepting a strong MFA challenge. And finally, we think that an identity-centric approach should also deliver growth for the business by allowing users to access the service and reducing drop-off rates, but also reducing the impact of fraud on that business. With that, we'll accept any additional questions that you might have.
Great presentation, Swaroop. I really appreciate that. I learned a lot about Okta's identity solution. I know everyone here did as well. And we want to get your feedback on this poll question. What additional information would you like about the Okta solution? And I'll leave this up here for a few moments. The experts from Okta are answering questions electronically. Swaroop is taking questions there electronically as quickly as possible. So keep those great electronic questions coming. I see questions coming in from Steve, Vadim, Deepak, Ken, and others. So thank you so much for all the excellent questions. Keep those great questions coming. We do appreciate those. As we were talking about in the keynote presentation, phishing has just skyrocketed up from 50% in, I think it was 2019, up to 83% in 2021. And identity is so important when it comes to securely enabling remote work and preventing phishing. So I know Okta's got a great solution for that, and we're about to hear about another solution related to identity here in just a moment with Duo. All right, thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll question. We do appreciate your feedback. And with that, let's now move on to our next presentation on today's EcoCast. I'm excited to welcome Ganesh Umpathy, Product Marketing Manager at Duo. Ganesh, take it away.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ganesh Umpathy from Cisco Duo Product Marketing Team, and I'm here to talk about how you can improve your defense against phishing attacks. So here's a high-level agenda of today's session. We'll be talking about how phishing has evolved into modern attacks and how organizations can improve resistance to these kind of modern phishing attacks. Then we'll talk about some best practices that we have learned as a company, Cisco Duo, on what we've implemented. And then we'll talk about how Duo can help your organization specifically. And then we'll end with some Q&A. So without further ado, let's get started. So the way the phishing has evolved is it's moved on from a mass phishing campaign to a more targeted phishing campaign that you're seeing. And when I say targeted phishing campaign, cyber attackers and criminals are focusing a lot of time and effort into social engineering activities to study their victims. When I talk about social engineering, this can be a lot of information available on a specific target or victim or an organization available online, such as looking up a specific team on LinkedIn, understanding who the team members are, understanding how the organization is structured, and really getting to know the victim and the organization. And then initiating a targeted attack. This could be spoofing a website, trying to create a fake website to capture the password so that they can then compromise the credentials and log in. So those kind of activities are taking place. And once you compromise the primary credentials, if you have weak multi-factor authentication options, such as SMS or OTP, or a phone call option, these weaker authentication options are susceptible to something we call as man-in-the-middle attacks, where the telephone numbers are easily spoofed. We have SMS phishing attacks that's going on. So cyber criminals can easily intercept the codes and get access to the second factor option passcode, even when even after compromising the primary credentials. So we're seeing a lot of those attacks as well. So once they compromise the primary credential and intercept the second factor authentication, they're able to get access into the network. And once inside the network, they're able to move laterally and escalate privileges as needed. So this is what we've seen in the recent few attacks. Now we can talk about how you can increase resistance to defend against these kind of attacks. So first, one way you can increase resistance to these kind of phishing attacks is requiring a higher level of assurance level for multi-factor authentication. Here you can see in this slide, the phone calls offer the least level of assurance for multi-factor authentication. We have such options include when I try to log into an application, I get a phone call. I just have to press any key on my phone, and that qualifies as a multi-factor authentication, and then I get to access the application. So this is, although it is multi-factor authentication, it does not offer a high level of assurance because a cyber criminal can add a different phone number into the system, and he can divert the call to his own cell phone number and then just authenticate into the system after compromising the primary credential. So that's a very weak option. Then we have SMS and email OTPs, which also have the same problem. They can be intercepted by cyber criminals. Software tokens and hardware tokens offer a slightly higher assurance level, but we like to ask organizations to require a dual push notification, or even better, a FIDO2 authentication method, such as YubiKeys or using Touch ID on your MacBooks or Windows Hello on your Windows devices. So those FIDO2 authentication options offer the highest level of authentication, followed by something like a push notification with additional policies around it. So with that, you can significantly raise the bar to cyber criminals trying to gain unauthorized access into your systems. And off late, we are seeing a lot of passwordless vendors hyping about the phishing resistance capabilities of passwordless. While it is true that passwordless does offer a higher authentication, higher assurance level, not all applications are compatible with passwordless options. So organizations need to evaluate in what use cases and what applications can support passwordless, and where applicable, it is recommended that you can move to that passwordless option, because passwordless too is inherently multi-factor authentication. It still uses the FIDO2 open standard method of authentication, and it's just that it's a seamless gesture. It feels like a single gesture for the user. Instead of typing a password and accepting a notification, he just uses Face ID or biometric touch ID on the MacBook, and in that single gesture can grant him access to the application without having to type the password. But he is confirming two things when he's doing that single gesture. He's confirming his identity using a biometric authentication, and he's verifying that the device is his own device as well, something he owns. So something he is and something he has. There's two forms of verification that's happening in the single form of single gesture. So this eliminates the need for passwords, something to remember. It's inherently multi-factor authentication, and it's not susceptible to man-in-the-middle attacks because you're not sharing anything private over the internet like a password. There's an exchange of public and private key. The password is mainly based on cryptography, and you exchange public keys over the internet. And if those are intercepted, that only public key alone cannot grant cybercriminals access into a system. So that way, it's phishing resistant. Another thing organizations can do is to raise the bar for cybercriminals is requiring device compliance. When I say device compliance, it can range from anything from requiring the operating system to be up to date. We are seeing Windows OS and Mac OS issuing a periodic, almost every month, updates with critical security patches. So it's important to make sure those devices are up to date with those patches, and also make sure that other security settings are enabled, such as passwords, screen lock, disk encryption, and so on. So ensuring that the device that's accessing your application meets a certain level of compliance standards or security standards as per your organization's policies significantly raises the bar for the cybercriminals, because typically when they compromise the credential, they're trying to gain access using their own system, which will not meet your organization's security policies. And the highest level of trust that you can set for a device is requiring the device to be managed in your corporate management system, like, for example, Intune or Jamf Pro for macOS devices. So requiring device compliance and managed device can significantly increase the bar for cybercriminals, and we suggest this for more sensitive, highly critical applications while providing remote access or secure access. So now let's talk about some best practices we've implemented at Duo. One of the key learnings that we've seen is, especially for a multi-factor authentication or a secure access solution, it's important to balance security with productivity. Over-optimizing on any one side can create gaps in security. So if you want to make sure that productivity is high, you want to make sure the policies don't hamper the usability. At the same time, if you increase the security, end users will find a way to circumvent those policies, which create security gaps. So it's important to find that right balance. And one way to find the right balance is making sure the user experience is frictionless. So you want to minimize the friction wherever possible. This might mean reducing the number of times users need to multi-factor authenticate into a system based on certain scenarios. For example, I'm logging into Salesforce at 9 a.m. and I need to log into Salesforce maybe at noon, and nothing else has changed. I'm using the same device, I'm connected to the same network, I'm potentially in the same location, so nothing else has changed. So when I log in the second time later in the afternoon, I don't need to multi-factor authenticate into this system. So that way you can minimize the number of times you need the user to authenticate. The second way to do it is allowing flexible authentication options. Not all users will have smartphones, or not all users will have access to a device that has biometrics enabled. So making sure the authentication option caters to each and every user and the use case is important. And last but not the least is empowering users with self-service. So can be anywhere from managing their own authenticator devices to making sure that the access devices that they are using, they were able to update it themselves and make sure the device they're able to remediate the device to make sure it's compliant with your organization's policies. Those kind of self-service abilities reduces the burden on IT and also empowers the users to get on with their work. The next best practice we've seen is that there's no silver bullet in security. So it's always important to take a layered approach. So the layered approach starts with having a strong authentication requirement. This can be multi-factor authentication or passwordless authentication, and a higher level of assurance factors such as YubiKey or Touch ID using that 502 standard. So that's an important step. Then you can layer it on with more granular policies with contextual information such as device-based policies, making sure the devices are up to date, location-based policies, and maybe you could look at what type of networks they're logging in from and block access from some anonymous networks and things like that. So contextual information also plays a key in adding that layer of depth. And last but not the least, continuously monitoring for any kind of anomalous behavior. So making sure that for example, if I'm logging in using a macOS device every single day at 9 a.m., and suddenly I'm using an out-of-date Windows device to log in the middle of the night from a location that's not my typical location. For example, I'm in San Jose, California, but I'm logging in from potentially northern Eastern Europe or some other region. So that's an indicator of an anomalous activity, because most likely it's not an easy travel for me to be in California in the morning and some other part of the world that very evening and logging in from a completely different device. So alerting the administrators in those kind of scenarios is important. And then you can increase security posture from there. You can get granular with the type of applications, taking a stock of inventory of the applications you have and applying policies for each of those applications based on the level of sensitivity of the data it houses, making sure that you're requiring users to update the devices and prompt them for hygiene compliance. And also making sure that this solution that you're using integrates with your existing ecosystem and doesn't create a lot of net new requirements for your IT teams to manage. And here, last but not least, is making sure your employees have a strong sense of security culture. And that is the key, because ultimately, no matter how many policies you can enforce, it's the understanding of your employees on how they can play a role in security and why it matters is important. Then they're able to follow those policies and be a part of your security program. So now let's talk about how Duo can help. So Duo is a solution that helps organizations provide easy and secure access for their employees, irrespective of their location and from any device. So Duo is very easy to deploy and manage. We're a completely cloud-based solution. Our customers have deployed it over a weekend in some cases, or in just a few weeks, or thousands of users. Duo can deliver a consistent user experience for access across different types of applications, whether it's SaaS applications or on-prem applications, and even private applications. And our solution provides administrators a centralized view or enforcement point for policy. So for users, they are able to use a single sign-on solution that's one-stop shop to access all their applications. And for administrators, that becomes the single policy enforcement point for all their applications. And we have a robust set of policies that administrators can enforce. It's based on the user roles, the type of devices they are using, the location of access, and so on. So we can really provide these core capabilities that can help organizations move their secure access journey to a zero trust model. Duo integrates with all the major vendors across different solutions, whether it's identity provider. We can work with your existing identity providers, your existing endpoint protection platforms to understand the device status, and also device management systems to understand whether it's a managed device or not. So we can hook onto any of those vendors and immediately gain contextual information from these solutions. So typically, I'd like to share this slide to showcase some of the key differentiators on why customers choose Duo over other solutions. One is ease of use. Duo has consistently ranked high for being very easy to use for all users. Here you can see UC Health is a very key customer for us, and they cater to different types of audiences. So they have physicians, they have clinicians, they have nurses, and they have hospital staff. And they have enabled flexible authentication option for all these audiences. So especially the clinicians, they're able to use Duo Push on their smartwatches, and that has enabled them to prescribe drugs for their patients in a very easy and seamless manner that doesn't intrude in their day-to-day duties. Another key value is broadest coverage. As I mentioned, we can integrate with any existing IT and security solution that you might have. So, and we can also cater to a wide variety of users and support wide variety of applications and devices. So we provide broadest coverage really across applications, users, and devices. And that's enabled a lot of higher education organizations because they have the most diverse set of users, students from all over the world. We have faculty, staff, and they use a lot of applications that are on-prem and also onboarding a lot of cloud applications. So the IT environment is quite complex, and Duo really excels in those kind of environments. The next key reason customers choose Duo is we're able to reduce the total cost of ownership. Upfront cost might seem high, but if you take into consideration all the cost of managing a secure access solution, and also the cost of integrating it into an existing IT environment, and also in the number of new secure access solutions that you might want to deploy, Duo can help and probably cater to all those use cases and reduce the total cost of ownership for you. Last but not the least is speed to security. I mentioned about this earlier. Especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of customers who wanted to move to this remote work model, were struggling to move from an in-office model to a remote work model overnight. And they reached out to Duo, and we were able to help them get set up just over a weekend, and have all their employees log in remotely the next week. So that was a cool validation of how soon organizations can deploy Duo at scale. So key takeaways here. Secure access starts with multi-factor authentication. It's also important to keep in mind the level of assurance for authentication factors we want to enforce for each application, requiring higher level of assurance factors such as FIDO2 based authenticators or push notification where applicable. Enabling a defense in depth approach. This is requiring device-based policies, also making sure that you are going as granular as possible in terms of application-specific access policies, and emphasizing on user experience. Again, having that balance between productivity, usability, and security really goes a long way in making sure your organization is safe and secure. So with that, we are coming to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. With that, I think let's take some time for Q&A.
Thank you, Ganesh, for that excellent information. And yes, we do have a couple of questions in here. The first one being, what other tools are efficient at helping to improve phishing defense other than or aside from multi-factor?
Multi-factor authentication is one of those simple and effective tools that can prevent the use of phished credentials or stolen credentials. And in addition to multi-factor authentication, you can use a defense in depth approach, like I mentioned, making sure, and I'm talking about this from a strictly access standpoint, where you can increase the bar for cybercriminals to gain unauthorized access by having those granular set of access policies, and also ensuring that you require a certain level of trust, device trust, before granting access. Also, you can enable passwordless options where it's applicable. Passwordless authentication is also a strong, also offers a strong level of authentication for phishing resistance.
Excellent. And what about applications that have to be accessed by external users or vendors where you may not be able to provision or issue them devices?
That's a great question. We do see a lot of applications that organizations want to enable access for external users. This could be partners, third-party users, contractors, and typically those users are not able to, organizations are not able to install any kind of software on those devices. And that's where Duo can really excel. It can come in and provide that really high level of device insights, making sure that or understanding what type of operating system they have, what's the browser version and the software version that they're using. And that gives the level of visibility that other solutions can't provide. And then organizations can then implement some policies on that. So browser-based policies, or even a lightweight application that we call as the Duo Health application that is available free for download and can be installed on any system, any third-party system. So that can provide us a little higher level of control on device-based access policies. So those are kind of the capabilities that we can come and provide, whether it's a agentless browser-based policy or a lightweight client-based policy that we can enforce on those third-party devices. This way you can ensure a seamless access for those external users to your applications.
All right. It looks like that is it for the questions that we got. So once more, Ganesh, thank you so much for this information. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. Please check out the available resources for download and let us know if you have any other questions. And with that, have a great day.
All right, thank you to Ganesh and the Duo team. I just brought up the poll question here that says, what additional information would you like about the Duo solution? And we want to get your feedback on this. Don't go anywhere yet because we want to get your feedback on this poll. And I will leave it up while we announce our final Amazon $500 gift card prize. I also want to thank everyone for the excellent questions that have been coming in electronically for Duo. I know that Ganesh covered as many as he had time for. And as many as we had time scheduled for in our session here, and the rest are being routed over to Ganesh and the Duo team electronically. So thank you so much for those questions. Those do, of course, help to enter you into our best question prize drawing as well. So the final Amazon $500 gift card, this one's going to David Perry from Kentucky. Congratulations, David Perry from Kentucky. We will be reaching out to you and all of our other prize winners on the event today, as well as our best question prize winners. So make sure you look out for an email on how to claim your prize. All right, thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll. We do appreciate that feedback. It's time now to wrap up today's EcoCast. Before we go, I want to remind everyone to check out the Gorilla Guide Book Club. The link there is in the Handouts tab. It's a great place to download completely free, easy to read enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts. If you are in the audience and you would like to chat with us about presenting on an upcoming MegaCast or EcoCast event, reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com and we would love to chat. And finally, I hope to see you on our next event happening next week, next Wednesday. It is an EcoCast where we'll be talking about the data center to the cloud, optimizing and monitoring your IT infrastructure. Look for an email invitation to that event in your email inbox, or after today's event, you'll be automatically redirected to our events homepage where you can register for this event and all of our other upcoming events as well. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us on the event today on preventing phishing attacks. I hope that you learned a lot. I know that I did, and I encourage you to do whatever you can do to prevent these awful attacks that in most cases are resulting in ransomware infections. So everyone keep safe, do what you can to secure your IT organization, and have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.